if this all works out.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah, welcome.
We'll turn it down to a dull roar.
Yes.
Mark, are you on Facebook? Yes, you
Am I
are.
on Facebook? Yes.
Yes.
Well, guess what? We're on live right now. Here we go. 6 o'clock. It's time for the for talk time with TJ. Triple T number 222. Yes, and here we are
On Tuesday.
on Tuesday. Triple T, triple two on a Tuesday on the last day
Terrible
of
twos.
March 31st, 2026. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day. I'm not fooling. Yeah, and well, glad you guys are here. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking questions to help people find the solutions they are looking for. And we are all over the world broadcasting live. Right now we're on YouTube, which means I get to say, hi, Mom. Mom up in Minnesota. I'm down in Dallas, Texas. We got people all over the place. And for those of you on YouTube, I'd appreciate it if you would do me all those YouTube favors that don't cost you anything other than a couple of clickety clicks. If you would please click the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know we're back on the air, and leave some comments and some likes. I would really appreciate it. It helps out the channel. And if you get some bonuses out of this content, or you know somebody who would, please share it. It doesn't cost you anything. We're just here to help as many people as possible. You can also check out my website at www.thetswb.com. Stands for the tall skinny white boy.com. Always has, always will, since way before the internet. So if you find anything else trying to say that that's the TSWB, that is not the right. That is not me, and it is not I. I am he, and he is I, and all the above. I am the tall, skinny white boy. And on the website, you're going to find some of the stuff that I get the privilege of helping people with, such as depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I offer corporate coaching, relationship coaching, all sorts of fun stuff. That's why I offer a free 30-minute consultation. That gives you the opportunity to get a hold of me. We chit chat, see if I'm a fit. If we are, I'll let you know. And if I don't feel that we're a fit, I promise you I will let you know and do my best to help you find the right person for the challenges that you are dealing with. Did I forget anything? It's been a week.
And it's only Tuesday.
It's only Tuesday.
Only Tuesday.
And now it's time to introduce the tie of the week. Been doing this since our first episode in 2024. You may recognize a few of these
Looney Tunes.
handsome people on there. Look at that. Mm-hmm.
Is this a new one?
Nope, I've had this one quite a while.
Very cool. Very
Nice
classic.
to see Taz all dressed up. Kind of reminds me of Guillermo if you look at that, doesn't it? Yeah, I think so. Guillermo. Good to
In
see
the best
that, buddy.
ways.
Yeah, like I said, it has been quite a week. Yesterday morning, I woke up and realized the amount of stuff that we accomplished on this piece of property in 7 days, and it blew my mind. We had tree trimmers here that trimmed off all the disease and dead and dropped a whole bunch of dead trees on Monday. Tuesday I worked with clients and we had Triple T 221. And then Wednesday and Thursday I took a backyard project and put it into hyperdrive and got a whole bunch of it done. Friday I worked with clients and continued work on the wall. Saturday I tore apart my brother-in-law's van and replaced a whole bunch of parts, including the radiator and thermostat housing and O2 sensors and all sorts of stuff. Got that back together. Sunday we finished work on the wall, and all of a sudden, bam! It was Monday, and I was like, "Wonder why I'm so tired." So that was my week since we talked last. Who wants to share some cool stuff from their life in the last 7 days? Anybody got anything cool to share? Yes, no, maybe so. Sometimes no news is good news. There have been weeks that I wanted to have nothing to report other than wake up, have a nice non-eventful day, go to sleep, and wash, rinse, repeat for 7 days in a row. But I guess it is, if nobody's got anything to share, that means it is time for us to get into the show. For those of you that are watching for the very first time or watching the recording for the very first time, the way it works, it's a 2-hour show. First hour, I do my best to get through 3 topics that I've downloaded from the universe, got from clients, who knows where they came up. And after the first hour, then we switch gears and it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic, and we do it kind of like a mastermind session. And everybody on the call gets to answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody is answered, if I feel I still have something to add to it, that's when I toss in my 2 centavos. So, I guess it is time for us to get into the topics of the week. Tonight's topics are trapped, financials, and switch. So, trapped, and there are so many different ways that this funny little word can be put into use, and I'm sure that a number of you have already had at least 4 or 5 definitions or applications to the word. Am I right or am I right? So,
You said trapped as in like somebody was trapped. T-A-R-P?
T-R-A-P-P-E-D.
Okay.
Trapped. And so, just for fun, humor me, you guys. What were some of the thoughts that came to mind when you heard or read trapped as a topic?
When you had just said it now, sent me into panic. The last time that I remember thinking I was trapped, legitimately physically trapped, I was stuck in a tree house when I was like 6 years old. And I was one of the bright-eyed ditzy ones that were like, oh, I'll jump 15, 20 feet down. And by jump, I mean like,
Free fall?
yeah, that's the one.
Face plant.
So, so my cousin and my sister had saved me twice from doing such behaviors. So thankfully there was not a third time to report on. But when you said trap, that was my first thought.
Cool. Anybody else? Oh, we got hands all over the place. I think Mike's was up first. Mike.
My brother is buying a house, and he was advised to go through this realtor through the hospital, and he is finding that the realtor may not be the best fit for him. So he's having a little bit of struggle with that. And I think he's feeling a little trapped with some of the discussions that they've had.
That's another one. Yes. Mark.
Yeah, I think people sometimes feel trapped in their when they've lost their passion. They feel trapped in their career, their job. But another thought occurred that I think people are sometimes prisoners of their own mind, so they feel trapped.
Mhm. And I think you kind of read some of the cliff notes for tonight. And Guillermo, for those of you that are watching on YouTube or watching the recording, join us because you don't get to see the comments section. And Guillermo added in there that he was trapped in bad thoughts, but now he's learning so much with, thank you for joining it, said with Triple T, that now I am trapped to learn the right techniques to do better and better. Thank you, Guillermo. Checks in the mail. Yeah, that was one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my topics do happen to come from working with clients. And tonight's topic did come from one of my clients who felt trapped in the programming that they were handed down through the generations. And not only through the challenge of trying to figure out how to get out of that way of thinking, but by friends and family who had issues with them changing because they were changing right before their eyes. And that became another trap. Kind of like the bucket of crabs scenario. And for those of you that have never seen a bucket of crabs, and I'll admit, growing up in farmland Minnesota, I had never seen that before. But sadly and ironically, if you've got a bucket of crabs and one has figured out a way to get out, the other crabs will pull it back down. And I've seen it a lot with my clients where they're finally breaking free of the challenges that they're up against and old programming and old thinking, and friends and family are doing their best to pull them back down into the bucket. Who do you think you are? Well, that's pretty arrogant to think that you can just be, what, you think you're better than us? And it's almost like you have to start over. You have to rebuild a new tribe that has no idea who you were before with the old programming. And even then, it's a challenge to remember who the new person is that you're becoming, because the old program has been running for so long that it's easy to fall back into it, which is another trap. That comfort zone, ooh, that's a deep groove in the record. Yeah. I love when people show up. Yes. We've been doing a lot of change work down in San Diego.
Can't see through those.
Yes. Mark.
Yeah, I was remembering something, took a minute. But the best kinds of traps are the ones that you don't realize that you're trapped, you know, and so you don't recognize that you are trapped. And that's people stay trapped because they don't realize they're trapped. They don't recognize it's like, we're prisoners of our own thoughts sometimes, and
Exactly.
we don't realize that, like I said, we don't realize we're trapped. And those are the best kinds of traps that, you know, uh, people in power, like to spring on us. So you don't realize you're trapped.
Kind of like the pictures of the horse that's tied to one of those plastic chairs. The chair where it weighs nothing. Or the elephant that has a little rope around its leg, around its foot. We know that the elephant could easily just snap that rope in a heartbeat and be off of itself, but it's trapped in the thought process that it can't do anything about it. And that's part of the danger of those kinds of conditioning. Just like, well, this is how I grew up and this is how I'm always going to be. That's a pretty deep trap. Now, is it a trap if you want to be there? Or do you want to be there because it's comfortable? Makes for an easy excuse to not have to put in the work to improve yourself. It's just like when I deal with people that believe that they are completely addicted to nicotine, cigarettes. And I'll ask them, well, why do you think they constantly say in the ads, nicotine is an addictive chemical, even though we've already proven that it's not. And nicotine on its own has been proven to not be a dangerous chemical for the body. It's all the other junk that they add into the cigarettes and the cigars and all that stuff that is the challenge. That's why they're finding that some of the best cigars are the ones that are natural woven or naturally wound with nothing in there. Mark.
Yeah, I've always conceptualized OCD as a low wall people build around themselves. It's only a couple of bricks high, but they feel comfortable within those walls. It's scary to step outside of them. You have to have someone reach inside and say, "Come on, it's okay." I think of OCD as that low wall that people put up. And sometimes they feel trapped within those low walls, but it's only you could step over it in a moment. But inside you feel safe, you feel comfortable. Outside is scary.
Yes. And coming from somebody who's not only OCD but CDO, because that's alphabetical the way it should be, It can be a trap sometimes because you can't rest if things aren't the way you vision that they're supposed to be in that order. And we've had some interesting comments. I'll summarize that, yeah, one of them is relationships, of which I've had a lot of clients over the years with relationship challenges that they felt trapped even after the relationship was over. They still felt trapped by the energy of the relationship. And some of them, when we did the work, they were still trapped by high school relationships, and they're in their 50s. That first love, that puppy love, you'll get over it, and you'll just forget them. And 30 years later, 40 years later, they find out that first love still owns a whole lot of real estate and makes it hard to give the person that they're currently with 100%. Lenora.
There was something that you had said about voices. Richard Bandler, at least somewhere along the line, I had heard one of his stories where his client was still arguing with her mother, and her mother had been dead for like 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he had said, so you're still arguing with somebody who isn't even in existence anymore, in like, or what we would consider in this existence. And he had pointed that out to her. So in that sense, you could absolutely be trapped. And then also in another sense of, Elijah's the one that comes to mind anytime I think of this. Whenever you get to a thought, and whether it's like, well, that's just how it is. He had asked me once, and he goes, and when did you decide that?
There.
And that is just the way that he had said it. And I'm sure many people have said it to me, or like, when was the first time that you thought this? Very specifically, he asks, when did you decide that? And that has always stuck with me, because even when I get to my own thought process of like, well, this is just how it is, I'll hear it pop up, and it's like, when did you decide that? I'm like, oh, wow, so powerful.
Yes. And it also comes in with always at least 3 solutions to every event, situation, or problem that may occur. And so many people that I work with that feel trapped, when I ask them, well, what have you tried so far that hasn't worked? And the most common answer, I've tried everything. Like, oh, we're in trouble, because if you've tried everything, then what can I offer you? And the look on their face when I point that out to them, they're like, well, or maybe you haven't tried everything. Maybe you've tried some things. Maybe you've just thought about it a lot. And sometimes the more you think about it, the deeper the cement gets and the more it sets up. Mike.
I can really kind of relate to the subject of being trapped. One of the things that I've dealing with, is the addiction to overthinking. It's kind of how I'm labeling it. It's really an addiction,
It is.
Because when you're not overthinking, then there's a void there, and then that starts your overthinking. One of the things that it does is it takes away your mental energy. It takes away, I mean, you're just, let me tie my shoes.
Hmm.
And when you get into situations that normal individuals who have time to look at their possibilities and to be able to look at these things, we're just continually swatting mosquitoes the whole time and then trying to, you know, fight social pressures and all these things that are going on. And I don't have time. I don't have the mental capacity. Can't pay attention to that small thing that is good for me in the future. I'm trying to swim here.
Yes.
So that's my 2.5 cents, if I can give you that.
And not to go too far off track, but what is the one thing that all overthinkers have in common? What
We're
do they,
magical.
yeah, what do they overthink?
Well, it's nothing ever positive.
Yes,
No, I
it's worst case scenario.
true. Or it's not even that. It's the conversations with the dead parent. It is the I should have done this, or I know that judgment is still there. I went
Yes.
through that today. I put together a swing set for um, a, a colored woman learner, um, economics and stuff like that. And my mother-in-law knows her, and I kind of helped her out, and so I built a swing set for her. My dad also does things for her. We got washing machine and stuff, and we know my history with my father.
Yep.
So the whole time was all of this happy headspace of him judging me putting this thing together because he's going to look at it and he's going to look at. I mean, it's and he does that he'll walk by something, but he'll just point and then walk off,
Yeah.
and you just want to take a machete because I just took him on a 2 hour small casual boat, where we are actually supposed to talk and bond and all that other stuff. And he was a dick the whole time, which
Yep.
was an amazing study because I recorded it and I get to see such a masterful individual who uses psychological tricks and bluster to get his way.
Yep.
And the way he waits until I'm trying to do something like dock the boat, that's when he starts putting on the heavy personal questions
Yep.
because it takes my guard out. That kind of person, you just, and how easy it is to slide into old patterns. It's like a comfortable sock. It's sliding into a made bed. And it's your shelter, it's your fallback position, it's your survival.
Yeah. And it's it's not even enough to recognize the pattern. It's having the knowledge, the tools, and the energy to get out of it. It doesn't take a person too long when they're in quicksand to realize that it's not a good place to be.
Well, that's fair, but when you're always in a reactionary position,
Yes.
it's the guy, one of the philosophical proverbs, the guy was running away from snakes and all that other stuff and then jumped into a hole, and then the honey fell down, the beehive
Yes.
down the hole, and he was in a crisis situation, but he got the comfort from the honey.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's that taste of honey in a crisis when your mind is it's just that warm little rock as you try to pull the last warmth out of it as it cools down in your hands and it's
Yeah.
cold. That's what it's like. Now
Yeah.
you want me to think of third party perspectives and how they all run, there's no way of getting out of that reptile brain in a shutdown situation like that. It's how they come across us.
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you. Sorry for the rant.
Oh, no, that's what we do here. We communicate. Lenora.
I love what you shared, Mike. Something that really stuck out to me when I was focusing in on a lot of about the fact that I was overthinking. And do not get me wrong, I can overthink with the best of them. And something that really stuck out of why didn't you see that coming? You should have known better. And one of the phrases is you should have known better. You should have. And what I realized in that context is in doing that, I was getting to the punch first to shame myself, because you should have was a key phrase that I heard throughout my entire growing up. You should have done this. You should have done that. You should have, blah, blah, blah. And I entrained from that to effectively shame myself harder, faster, deeper than anybody else, to the point that I had no idea that I was doing it until I got in conversations with certain people. And I know TJ has definitely pointed it out to me, going, who's saying that? Who's saying you should have? And really looking at that voice of who is saying that. And in recognizing that I was in the loop, I had trained myself, not just overthinking, I trained myself to shame myself to an aggressive standpoint, to an aggressive amount that I didn't even know I was doing it. And that's where I think the beauty in dissecting the internal conversation. This is why I'm very passionate about language, because we get in these language loops and they're so automatic. I would have never freaking known. It's been on autopilot since God knows when. And being able to have a conversation with who else is talking in here, with somebody out here that can navigate the conversation, that can say, okay, who's this person? Where did that come from? When did that come up? And be able to analyze that level of awareness. I'm not broken. I'm not effed up. It's just something that I was doing. To me, shame is the heaviest. There's a difference between shame and guilt, but shame is quite literally put on you. And it's almost, the way I often think about it is that it was passed to you, whether you or me, whatever it was, it's passed to you almost like a plate of cookies, like eat them, and forced in your face. Like, you need to be shaming yourself. You did something wrong. And especially because that phrase, you should be ashamed of yourself, you should do da, 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 would roll off people's tongue. It was just such a common thing to say, especially if you grew up in certain households. Like, I know guilt and shame were people's bread and butter, and that's how they wheeled and dealed throughout growing up. So to raise your own awareness of, like, who's talking in here? Do I really need to be putting myself down? Which isn't just putting yourself down. Do I need to be shaming myself for this? What level am I at? And that might help raise your awareness of overthinking, or where you think you might be overthinking, because it's not necessarily like, I should be able to make a decision. Keep digging into that one.
And don't get me wrong, overthinker. Oh, why? And I think a lot of us that have that cross training of so many different things and so many different experiences have that ability to have multiple sided conversations internally. And it's gotten me in trouble a couple of times because I was certain that I had this conversation with somebody. And they are certain that it never occurred. And I have to realize that I probably rehearsed 2,700 arguments with them in my head, and I'd forgotten which one actually happened. But I was really good, which also got scary because I knew that if it escalated to that type of an argument, I was well equipped with weapons. And with the training that we have with language and patterning and things of that nature and reframing, we can be pretty ninja-like and quite warrior level with words. And as protective or toxic empaths, we will choose to internalize it and let them off because we know that, well, they had a bad day or they're just that way, or if we bring it up, it's just going to escalate. If I tell them what they really should hear, then they're going to fight back, and then it's going to get, and when I did that when I was a kid, it came with other circumstances. And so you learn to keep the arguments inside of the trap. And even a lot of my relationship clients, when I pointed that out, the look on their faces when I knew that it landed, they're like, oh my gosh, I did that so many times. Yeah, and you're right, Mike. It is the reactive, not the proactive. And that's where do you want to win the battle or the war? And sometimes we think it's not worth the battle. But then in the end, the war goes on and on and on and on, and we're trapped again. And so there have been a few times in my life where I just finally was like, I'm ready for the war. One of us is going to come out of this war, dead or alive. Even if both of us come out bloody, somebody's going to feel something. And that's the challenge of the trap. If it was easy to get released and walk out, well, it wouldn't be much of a trap, would it? Mike.
This is the difficult thing of what it's like to be beat down from an external source.
Mm-hmm.
There was an experiment where they put dogs in electric cages,
Mm-hmm.
and then after so long they would shock them, and then just whatever, shock them, just whatever, and the dogs would stop fighting or yelping, but just whimper and accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunately a survivalist mental situation where you just, well, it's Tuesday, and he gets back from bowling, and he knows, in the past 2 years, he gets drunk and he wants to beat on me. And that mindset breaks my heart.
Yeah, mine too. For anybody that goes through that. And it's conditioning as well. Another famous experiment. Fleas, of all things, can jump so high, but you put them in a glass jar and you put a lid on it, and you hear, while they're all jumping like crazy and they're hitting the lid, and pretty soon you hear less and you hear less and you hear less and you hear less, and pretty soon you don't hear anything. They're still jumping. But you take the lid off, and they, even though they have the capacity to jump 10 times higher than the opening of the glass, the lid that was on there conditioned them to know that they can only jump this high. And I guess it just one of my squirrels just delivered to me. Squirrel. I wonder what would happen if you took that same jar of fleas that had been trained that they can only jump 2 inches instead of 3 feet. I wonder what would happen if you would introduce another 15 or 20 non-conditioned fleas into the jar without a lid on it. Would the conditioned fleas watch the non-conditioned fleas jump out and go, well, how did he do that? Like, he made it like right through the glass ceiling. Would any of them try to go? Yeah, I saw the one about the pike experiment. Another great one, Mike. For those of you watching the recording or on YouTube, the pike experiment was you take a fish tank and you put a pike, which is an aggressive hunter of the fish world, and you put a sheet of glass in the tank, and on the other side you put all of their favorite food, their favorite fish to eat, their favorite prey, and they will go after the prey, but they hit the glass. And after they hit the glass enough times and sustain enough damage, they will stop going after the prey, and you can actually remove the glass. And this prey that they would normally go after and be able to eat like that can swim freely around them, and the pike will starve to death because it has been conditioned that it can no longer achieve getting its prey. Another trap. Some traps are so delicate and yet so effective and so sinister. And I got to admit, when I wrote down this topic tonight, and I was actually going to type the topics in there, I almost left this topic out because I didn't know where it would go. so I didn't have a structure for it. And here we are, 45 minutes into the first hour on topic number 1. But we're pulling up some really good stuff. Anybody got anything other that they... Oh, yes, another great comment, Mike. Sinister, and it's worse to know that it was done on purpose. The only thing that I approve of it being done on purpose is that it showed how easily the conditioning and will can be put into place by one simple change of an environment. That pike was in its environment. It was in water. It had everything it needed. But that one piece of glass broke its will and conditioned it to believe that it could no longer be who it was. Yeah. Broke its will. It became an entirely different fish. Now, could something have come in again, just like my scenario with the fleas? What might have happened if before that pike got too weak, had you put another pike in that tank without the glass, and the one that was conditioned was able to see an animal just like it, being able to get to its prey quickly and easily, might that pike have tried one more time because of what it saw? And if it were able to one last time grab one of its prey, would it have been able to reverse the conditioning? Because I don't think that there would be a therapist pike or a hypnosis pike that would have been able to go up to the conditioned one and go, it's all in your head. It was just a piece of glass. You're still a fighter. Mike.
Oh, this is really the core of the whole subject, isn't it? Because until you have an external ladder or perspective or strength or anything like that, how do you know that you're in the whirlpool if you can't feel it and know that the outside world outside of that doesn't exist because your whole world is just going around in that whirlpool? It is the ability to stop. I'm starting to get into the practice of just taking 2 minutes. Alexa, set a timer for 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Starting now.
There it is. For 2 minutes, I stop. I disconnect and just let go.
Yeah. That's why I tell people, you haven't tried everything yet. You've just tried the things that haven't worked.
My 2 minutes, and we're not going to take it all. I want you to know that when all of that starts coming back online, the first thoughts that come are really what I needed to hear. And really was the next step for me at that moment. when the boiling water finally stopped and
Good.
it became safe to sit. So just sorry for another rant.
Oh, no. Again, you're in the perfect place for the rants because there is somebody that needed to hear that. I hate to break it to you, Mike. I adore you to bits and pieces. You're not the only person that's been through this. Sadly, I would love to say you're the only person that has ever experienced this, but that's why we're here. Because there are so many people like you that have gone through this stuff. And I don't want it happening anymore. In fact, I would love for this to be your last day that you've ever gone through this shit. And one of our viewers just put in here, if Edison had not kept trying, we would be living by candlelight. Yes. You keep, little quote from Dr. David. At some point, does it really matter if people want you to wave a dead chicken over them if it works? I don't care. I'll wave a dead chicken over you if it works, and then I'll make supper. I just want people to have a better life and realize a lot of traps are not nearly as solid or secure as they think they are. The issue with mind traps is there are so many routes, so many different ways to go, and they can be so deep and so comfortable in their pain that it's hard to get the people out of the rut. I don't know if any of you have ever driven on old backcountry roads when it starts when it's rainy season, but those gravel roads can get some pretty deep ruts. And you can do your best to go down those roads again without falling in the rut. But all it takes is one little slip and you're back in that rut, and trying to get out of that thing can take a lot of work. So I'm not judging anybody. Again, if some of you heard some of the stuff running through my gray matter, you'd be wondering why I don't have 20 therapists working with me. One of my things is music and work and building stuff. Because if my mind is going to be going 1,000 miles an hour on high octane, then I might as well just decide which track I'm going to run down. And if that's me out in the shop fixing something, singing at the top of my lungs and letting my neighbors listen to good music whether they want to or not, sometimes that's my therapy. But I also learned I have to be very careful in my choice of music when I'm in moods. Because I can get pretty dark and put on some pretty dark music, and that's just tossing some fuel on the fire and going, look what I've created. Oops, got a little warmish. And that's where you have to have a tribe like you all. Sometimes you got to have that sounding board, that person you can call up and just say, hey, you ever have one of them days? And they go, yeah. Want to hear mine? Yeah. And then both of you talk about your days for a little bit. But you pick the right ones and they go, okay, we got that over with. So let's talk about something good. And you burned off that fuel, did a couple of reframes, and then you did plot twist left turn so that you can go to bed at night without monkey brain going. Can I get an amen? Can pass the potatoes.
That was really good. This has been time well spent for me. And listening to the other people who have experiences in this helps me feel more normal and accepted. So thank you for that.
You're as normally screwed up as most of us, including me. My goodness, my friend. Again, if anybody spent any amount of time inside of my gray matter, I'm pretty sure most of them would run out going, what in the... Yes, Guillermo, perfect question. What is normal? And then I saw a t-shirt that showed this really frazzled animal. And it said, I tried normal once, worst 5 minutes of my life. Because it can be. If you are so far in right field and you jump all the way over into the left field and you start looking around going, I don't recognize anything here. What the what? Like a fish trying to climb a tree to get to a coconut. Even if you get to the coconut, you're like, what do I do with this?
Is that not the distinction between normal and natural?
Yes.
I mean, that behavior, people do that. They climb the tree because they believe it's a normal behavior. They don't understand it's not a natural thing to be doing.
Yeah.
People I think they just don't see that within themselves. Like they think normal is natural. They think normal is okay. They're part of the tribe. They're part of the group. They're doing the same crazy shit that everybody else is doing, not realizing this is not a natural way of being.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I constantly tell people that everybody has multiple personalities.
Oh yeah.
And this whole concept of they have multiple personality disorder. Well, when does it become a disorder? I've brought this up many times in many of my classes and with many of my clients. A personality only becomes a disorder when it no longer fits in the current community guidelines. And my favorite example is a personality that likes to kill strangers a disorder? Is it a bad personality? And of course I get people out there, well, of course, are you kidding me? Like, killing people. And I'm like, if I'm in the middle of a heated war, I'm hoping my buddies have that personality really good, because there are strangers out there trying to kill us. But if that personality shows up at a concert or in a school or something like that, that's a disorder. That's an issue that needs to be dealt with immediately. And so all of this stuff that we've covered can be put into personalities. That's the reason why I have my clients name as many of their personalities as possible, because it's much easier to talk to that personality, like the one that does the overthinking. Well, who's the overthinker? Well, that's Bouncy Bob over there. Can't shut up. He drinks 3 pots of coffee, 5 Red Bulls, and 6 5-hour energies for breakfast. And then he gets in my head and starts telling me stuff. And if I know that that's who's up there causing the commotion, maybe I need to have the bouncer come over and give him a couple of head thumps and put him to bed so I can get on with my day. And here we are. We're even 2 minutes into your guys' hour, and we accomplished one topic.
One whole topic, though.
One whole topic on episode 222 on a Tuesday for Triple T. But that means it's time for us to switch gears and open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a topic or a question, and you guys get to answer first. So you guys get to decide what we talk about now. We can keep this discussion going. I just get to take a back seat, or if somebody's got a question, looks like Mark's got his hand up. Mark, what do you got for us?
I had a question about, like I said, last week I was at a memorial service for a buddy of mine who passed away back in October. And, following his tradition, Jewish tradition, there wasn't a wake. There was just a service. And then we went to the graveside and a few people spoke. But, I've always felt that the wake is a way to jumpstart the grieving process. But as we were at the hall and they were talking, and we were talking about my friend and sharing stories and stuff like that, I kept expecting him to walk in the door. And I know that it was an irrational thought, but I just kept expecting him to just waltz through the door. And, so the question occurred to me, have we ever really, truly done grieving? I don't have a good answer for that, so I'd like everybody's input. Have we really, truly ever done grieving for people that we lose?
Good question. Who's got an answer?
I have a comment.
Good.
I think you were sensing him because he's not really gone anywhere. Right? I've heard many times before that those who pass, they just they're in spirit form, but they're not necessarily gone. I don't think anybody ever dies. Just change form and maybe where we want to be and where we want to experience whatever we choose to experience somewhere else. Maybe they're hanging around maybe they're not finished. Maybe they want to give you some comfort, the people who are their friends and family. And is grieving not, you mentioned grieving, Mark, is grieving not a choice, right? And the grieving in the sense of, oh, it's so awful. I miss this person so much. Oh, how could this happen? I think natural grieving would be like I liked having this person around and I miss their presence. I think for me anyway, there's a knowing that I'm going to see everybody who was here on this plane. I'm going to go home and see them when I pass and I change form. And we're going to sit around and talk and laugh and have a couple of drinks and discuss what we went through and why, and hopefully, make new decisions, right? So I think grieving, heavy duty grieving, like, oh, it's awful and oh, I can't stand this. I can't live without them, maybe. I think that's partially our social conditioning, possibly due to the wonderful religions that have been on the planet, dictating, how we ought to be in relationship to death, you know. So I guess it's like anything else that we're talking about. Come here. We can choose how we're going to be, right? How we're going to think, how we're going to speak, how we're going to respond. We can choose that. So I don't know. I think grieving, you can choose to grieve in a powerful, more realistic, natural way, perhaps.
Is it ever, but are we ever done?
What's that?
Are we ever done? Like, yeah, again, you said these people are still with us in spirit.
Yeah.
Other people have put in the comment, that their spirit, again, remain alive in our minds as long as we don't forget them. But
Absolutely.
like I said, but the question still remains: are we ever done?
No,
Grief.
I don't think so. What,
I don't.
done
I don't think
being or
that's
done
all.
grieving?
Well, again, what is it? What does grief turn into? Like you said, you would just describe some. This person is gone. We'll probably hook up again somewhere else and have a beer, and we rarely get to that last stage, which is meaning. Why did this person leave, basically? So, like I said, I'm not. I won't forget him as long as I'm alive, and certain things will trigger memories. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, but I'm not sure that's grieving. Like I said, is there a point at which you don't grieve anymore? You just remember. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of
Really?
stymied with that.
Remember the blessings of the relationship, who you were in the relationship, who he allowed you to be, how you allowed him to be together, the joining of the energy of somebody, a friend or family member. Isn't there a whole bunch more good stuff to remember and to hold on to rather than something we decide is bad? It's all choices. Like, choose to remember the good parts and how you grew with him and the good times you had and the laughter or whatever, the traveling or whatever you did with him.
And that's what I passed along is some stories that his family didn't know about
Hmm.
of some of our less notorious adventures.
Yes. Yep.
So I was sharing, basically, stories that, that I'll always carry with me.
And I'm
Like I
guessing they
said,
were all good ones. So you probably didn't talk about the
absolutely.
disagreements you had or, the quote unquote bad things that happened. You were speaking of probably positive experiences you had with him, right?
Mhm.
Lenora.
I think there's multiple levels. I think there is this awareness that we are spiritual beings or we're an extension of something. And in that capacity, that your soul is protected. You know that you're with this person or spending time with them, whether it's you and your friend or if it's somebody else and their significant other, whatever it might be, that we all are somehow still connected. And I think there's this human piece, this 3D physical experience that we do have this, but you're not here. You're not in this this sense where I can touch you and laugh with you and hug you and be physically in this experience with you. So I don't know if it's necessarily a grieving, or it might be grieving to some people, or a awareness of what we call missing, someone. And it's so interesting because I recently came across a reel, and I am known quite famously for saying, like, I miss this, or I miss you, or I miss that, da, 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 da. And in this reel, it had said, focus, when you say I miss something, you're focusing in on the lack of it rather than drawing your awareness to, we are together, we are here, where we are connected, we are having laughs. So I think there is this back and forth because we're both. So I don't really know if there's ever a complete resolution that your entire nervous system can settle upon without having the awareness of, yes, this is true, and yes, this also feels true.
Maybe it's about gratitude.
Holly.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head when you said, it's about finding meaning. There's a really good book. It's called Finding Meaning, The Sixth Stage of Grief by David Kessler that I highly recommend. We were talking earlier about being stuck and that sort of thing. But I think it just kind of depends. I think it's possible to, choose to get stuck, shall we say. I mean, and it's not always a choice. Like, there's a period of time it's going to take for anybody to get over anything. But I was thinking, let's think about something other than a person, because I think that, when it's a person, and we'll come back to a person, but it feels almost like if I say I'm not grieving, that maybe I'm being disloyal, or maybe, if you've got that as your meaning,
Yes.
you're not ever going to be able to get over it. But if you think of it as, oh no, I think, I do believe we'll see him again. And maybe that's the moment where we will stop grieving, what it may be. But also, what am I carrying on their legacy? How am I creating meaning out of what we had before? How am I creating meaning of how we lost them? And I think if you could find the right meaning, instead of it being grief, it could be celebration. It could be, and that doesn't mean you don't miss them, but do you miss somebody when they go on a business trip for a month? You can miss them. That doesn't mean you have to grieve. And once again, it's, are you feeling disloyal if you don't grieve? Or are you honoring them by not grieving because that's what they would have wanted you to do, and that's what gives meaning to their life, because you're remembering the good stuff and you're bringing forth the good stuff. Anyway, so one of the things I was thinking too is, like, do you grieve the loss of, and this is for me, that job that you lost? Or do you find the meaning and say, yeah, I loved it, but now I understand why I lost it, and now I understand what the next adventure of my life is. And you could say, this person can't be with me for a period, but maybe we both needed to separate because there are things that we need to learn on our own. They need to learn on the other side, and we need to learn over here. And when we come back together again, what am I bringing so that we will have something amazing to talk about when we have that beer together? So anyway,
Yeah.
Great answer. Mike.
Oh, my squirrel. I got this one squirrel. Let me tell you about this one squirrel. This here one squirrel. He's kind of out there. You know what I'm talking about? And so this dog right here knows this squirrel. He chases the marks at that squirrel. But that first squirrel said, what if he's a ghost and he's lonely, missing you while he still sees you walking around, and he uses his energy to create situations of which you would think of him, and feels good knowing that you remember him. And if this is true, what memories would you want him to feel you experiencing? Now, is that a goofy squirrel? Now he's Fred. He's just kind of out there. So welcome to Fred.
That was great.
And I've got so much stuff on this because I help a lot of clients with grief. And a couple of different ones. One that I usually ask them is, if I could talk to this person today, and I were to ask them, how long should so-and-so suffer in the depths of grief to make you feel properly honored? And it's interesting, the number of clients that said, well, they wouldn't want me to suffer at all. I said, well, but isn't grieving showing how much you love them? Isn't that how they would deem it? And my clients would go, no, they don't want me to suffer. Good. Do they want you to forget? No. Then don't forget them. But I'm sure they would agree you've suffered long enough. And I've met some people in my life that wear that grieving suffrage like a badge of honor. They know the day the person died better than the day they were born. And every year on that anniversary, they'll let the world know that this is the day that I lost so-and-so, and my world ended, and all of the above. And I'll ask them the same questions, how long did this person love you? Yes. Well, if they loved you, why would they want you to suffer for so long? Wouldn't they prefer that you be happy?
Interesting what Mike wrote.
Yeah. Is this a trap? Well, kind of. High school mentality also a trap? Yes. Sometimes that first love, grieving that first love. And while we're on squirrel, delivered, it had never dawned on me when I ended up in California after losing everything. It took one of my friends to point out that I had never grieved the loss of my businesses and my property. I had delved so deep into survival mode that I just knew that I had lost everything. And I'd never taken the time to grieve it or process it. And so I worked on that, and the very next time I went home, I drove out to that property, parked on the road, looked at it, and I just apologized to it. I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't take care of you anymore. And that was when it flipped for me, and I decided I'll remember all the stuff all the life that I experienced on that property. But I can't continue to beat myself up and stay in survival mode because life handed me a plot twist left turn. And so I gave it what I figured was proper amount of grief for the loss, but then I looked forward to the future of what I was going to be able to accomplish following that. And I've had some great properties since, and a couple of great businesses, and here we are. Anybody else got any ahas, inputs, epiphanies they want to share? Michael.
Hey, your beard looks really good.
Yeah, I'm not quite ZZ Top. I'm kind of like BB Top or something. Maybe an A plus Top or something.
I think it looks fantastic. I apologize for being late. I was working. I'm glad to be here, and I'll get caught up. But I just want to say you asked, so I want to say, hey, you're looking good.
Thanks. Well, we're 21 minutes into the second hour. We've got one topic, a great topic about grieving. And anybody else got anything to share, or is it?
Sorry,
And
you're probably
people are
doing
like, yeah, people are like, what are you doing? I'm reading. Yeah, and I've had people go, man, when you're doing these things, your eyes are all over the place. Yes, I have a 50-inch television as a monitor, and I have a 30-inch surveillance camera monitor over here. So I got squirrels all over the place. And comments are way over here. And Mike had asked the question, and you want to ask it straight out, Mike?
Yeah, where would you be without that intervention? Again, an outside event, which was the instigator of the pivot in the water change.
Where would I be without that intervention? I don't know. I really don't. I can pontificate that I would have lasted in survival mode longer, and eventually would have ended up with another piece of property and went, well, you guys have heard me say a number of times, had I not lost everything in 2007, I wouldn't know you guys. It took me losing everything in 2007 to end up in San Diego, where I met Dr. David, where I learned about this stuff that I was not interested in, I was not looking for, I was and here I am. And I've had
Lucky you.
Thanks. But I've had people ask me if you could go back and do it differently, if you could have saved that beautiful piece of property, would you? And that is a really hard question for me to answer, because so many good things came out of what happened there. I've got a client that she is still grieving the loss of her first husband, who sadly passed away from medical issues. And yet, her second husband gave her 3 beautiful, successful children. And so, if you could go back, would you be trading in your 3 beautiful kids to be with your first husband and would he have still had medical issues, but lifelong, decade medical issues? And so you gotta stop looking at. We covered this a couple of weeks ago about romancing the past. I told one of my clients recently, reminded them about the quote that comparison is the thief of joy. Oh, but look at where I was. Look where we were. Oh my goodness. And those red flags, they've been sitting outside long enough. They're bleached white. I was fine back then. No, you were flipping miserable. We all know. We heard it. Lenora.
I was just trying to get a little clear on very specifically what Mike was saying. Where would you be without that intervention? I missed a piece and I didn't know what kind of intervention.
With the grieving, I had somebody, I had never thought of grieving the loss of my businesses and my property. And I was so deep in survival mode and woe is me, that they said, you have to allow yourself the honor of grieving the loss of that. And it never occurred to me, why would grieving the loss of a piece of property? But yes, I absolutely loved that piece of property. And grieving the loss of my businesses? Yes, I put a lot of blood, sweat, tears, joy, had great times, bad times. It was a relationship. Woo! And it was not my choice to give it up. And that's why they said I needed to grieve the loss. Lenora.
I think for me, at least from what I've come to learn, grieving, processing, whatever label you want to call it, essentially we are working to hold space. And in holding space, we're holding the frequency of acceptance, holding the frequency of not judging, not criticizing, not berating, not tearing it down, and settling in the frequency, not settling as in I'm settling for less, settling as in I'm okay in this emotion. I'm okay experiencing this energy. I'm okay letting myself grieve the loss of my business, letting myself grieve the frustration and the anger of whatever might be coming up, whether it's a loss of somebody or it's a loss of a business or a loss of something that you thought was going to happen and it didn't. And however long you stay in that space, it would be lovely if somebody could say like, hey, all you have to do is spend 10 minutes here and you'll be fine. You could process the emotion. Sometimes it is a shorter experience, but to really let yourself move through the emotion of whatever it is that's coming up, because I find that, at least definitely for me and for my clients, especially when it comes to anything related to eating, we're so quick in this culture to move away from our emotion and to move away from the discomfort because we're designed that way. We're designed to move toward comfort. And sitting in uncomfortable emotion is sitting in discomfort and being able to hold space for that. And we love to disconnect from it. We love to numb away from it, whether it's with food or alcohol or drugs or a phone or whatever it is. But when you can sit there and you can settle in it, this is why I think like writing in a journal is really powerful, or writing a letter to somebody about whatever it is really powerful, because you're allowing yourself to sit in that space, to feel all that emotion in that container. where you're not judging, you're not criticizing. And I think this is also one of the beautiful things that comes from working with professionals who are very consistently able to find that space and to find that frequency of, I'm going to go down, what I affectionately refer to, I'm going to go down the ladder and I'm going to sit. I'm going to let you sit in the foxhole and I'm going to stand on the bottom rung and we will stay there as long as we need to. And I will be here with my hand to guide you up. Or I've often said to TJ that he's a ship or like a captain of a ship because he's guiding people across these very rocky waters. And holding that certainty of we're here and it's okay. And no matter whatever comes up, I'm right here with you and you're okay. And I think that's extraordinarily powerful because it really is energy in motion, and it's being able to feel that emotion, whatever it is. And that's part of being here.
And sometimes I have to remind people that their passing happened. It is no longer happening. It does not have to continue happening. You don't have to continue their passing for any additional glory or honor or allow them to be physically away from you. Honor them by not forgetting them. One of the things that really struck me was when they say that everybody dies twice. The first time when they take their final breath in this meat suit on this planet. And the second time they die is when nobody remembers who they are. There was a Pixar movie, help me out with the...
Coco.
Coco? Oh, yes. And it yes, grabbed the Kleenex but it was the same thing. It explained a lot about the Spanish and Mexican heritage of Dia los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, to remember, take that time to remember those that have passed before us so they don't die a second time. And I've said there are certain people that will never die that second death. Noah, Jesus, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. You know, there's just those certain people that they were so big in history that the amount of time it will take before nobody ever remembers their name at this point is somewhat imperceivable. And so, Mike.
What's interesting is when the Nazis went through in World War II and conquered all these people, first thing that they did is they raided and burned down their libraries to erase their knowledge and their traditions.
Yep. And so when you look at when did people stop quote unquote grieving the loss of those people and switch to simply remembering who they were with reverence. And there are obviously other people on that list that we don't revere with nearly the amount of love. Genghis Khan and Hitler are on that list as well. So, Holly.
I have a follow-up question. I guess it's kind of a two-part question. The first part is it possible to grieve when you're still in survival mode? I'm kind of thinking about, if you're in battle and the person next to you falls in battle, you may not have time to grieve them. There's a
Yep.
Star Trek episode that goes into that. But then on the flip side, is it sometimes required to grieve to get out of survival mode, and does lack of grieving keep you in survival mode?
Well, that question is right in alignment with what we're discussing. So, being she brought it up that way, who's got some more input on that? Anybody? Go ahead.
I don't think I'm likening this to addiction. And how does one get out of the whirlpool of addiction without an exterior perspective or something or a life event? When you're in and out of control, semi going down the mountain, and in your reality, and it's backed up by self image and self history and self regulating activities that help how you go through life but are destructive to your reality and the people around you, or that cycle, no matter where it find it. It is the overthinking of a void that is looking at 1/1,000,000th of the world, but you can't see the rest of it. The other 999 numbers that is out there. The lucky people are the ones that are not looking into that void and living in that transderivational area where it's all kinesthetic feeling and your reality and your world is so small that you can't even look out. The individuals I think are able to move on are the individuals who are able to expand their reality, to push away those pressures, to take time. I didn't want to talk after Lenore. Shoot, I didn't have anything to follow up after her. I mean, just place all that she said right here. Ding. Okay, perfect. Now you throw that in there. It's that point when you do that for yourself out of self-worth, self-confidence, self-image, your future self, you, me, you're in the world. And until that decision is not just thought of, but acted upon, decided, and what I'm coming up with is completed. That full buy-in, cutting off all of the, if it ain't it, it's not it. If you're not with me, you're against me. And that comes from in a mind that is not dimmed by dysregulation. That level of commitment can't come from a survival mode, because the image, the perspective, the universe isn't large enough in order to fully engage with that commitment and energy. When you have 20%, if 10%, that you have left after overthinking. So, my rant, sorry, thanks.
Good stuff, man.
That was such a good rant, Mike.
Yeah.
Especially when you mentioned, really, Mike, everything you said was wonderful. I really resonated with the dysregulated, especially when we we look at identities. We constantly switch identities all day long, and yet we call ourselves the same person. And whether we could be in our zone of genius, you are in your identity of whether it's doing this type of work, or Mike, I believe you're an inspector, like that's your zone of genius, and having that flow versus then going into a totally different interaction, and you shift identities because of maybe you're networking with somebody, or you're asked to explain this other part of what you do, and you still aren't quite with the words that you want to have explaining it to somebody who might not automatically resonate. Or you go into the store and now you're in a different identity because now you're in a customer-based identity. We constantly do that. And when we're talking about survival mode and really being in a regulated state, when you wake up in the morning, in those brief moments, you're a different person than you are an hour later after you're flooded with thoughts. So when we're talking about being in survival mode, which part of you, or to anybody, which part of you would feel like they're in survival mode and that they can't, in this case, I think we were talking about grieving before, that you can't grieve, and your example is really interesting. That is, to me, that person that you gave an example of, if this person was in a war zone and this person next to them passed away, that's a very specific, dysregulated identity, and really working for one and only goal, which might be to survive, versus how we now move about the day. Thankfully, as far as I know, people on this call, thankfully, are not in an active war zone, which is a great thing. So where are those moving identities? What parts of you are feeling dysregulated? And then again, how can you come back to finding ways to recalibrate your nervous system? I love that Mike had mentioned earlier, Alexa, start the timer for 2 minutes. I thought that was fantastic. It's a tool in the toolbox, one that he can rely on, he can trust, he knows that, okay, when I do this, this is the next thing that will happen. I've done this enough times. He's able to shift his identity from recognizing something is going on to recognizing I need to shift into this, to recognizing I am in a new identity. I have a fresh start. I have a clearer moment. That is extraordinarily powerful to be able to activate at any given point in time at the drop of a hat, because he just went from dysregulated to regulated.
Great stuff. And I have to admit, I had about 5 squirrels screaming at me when Mike was talking, especially when you brought up the idea of the runaway truck down a hill. And coming from a truck driving family, and this really sticks with me. But part of it, one of the things that stuck out is experience. And it struck me that when I was young, I knew all of my grandparents' friends. And then pretty soon they all started dying. And I was watching Grandma and Grandpa and the our parents and stuff going through that loss, that grieving loss. And then we get to the age where all of a sudden now it's our parents and our parents' friends, that age range is starting to get into the drop off rate. And you watch that grieving zone again. And I had a couple of them, that even when I was young, I lost a couple of friends due to accidents. And I didn't have enough experience, like even when my grandfather passed away when I was young, I didn't quite have enough experience to understand what really had truly happened. Like Wayne Dyer was talking about, he was in a foster home and the husband of the foster home had passed away. And the wife was grieving, and he said, well, when is he coming back? And she looked at him and she said, never. And he had to think about the depth of never. And so you get the experience as we age on how to deal with this. And then we get to a certain age, and when you were talking truck driving, you guys know who Jim Croce is?
Yes.
Songwriter. Well, he had a song called Speedball Tucker, who was a truck driver that would do little white pills and put a stick on the throttle and just prop it in there so that he could dance with his feet while he was driving from coast to coast, called it West Coast Turnaround. And he came up with the song because they were interviewing a truck driver who had put on over 1 million miles. And the interviewer said, I got a scenario for you. If you were going down a long, winding mountain road, and you realize that your brakes went out, with all your experience, what would you do? And the truck driver looked at the interviewer and he said, well, I'd probably wake up my partner. The interviewer goes, you'd wake up your partner? He goes, yeah. He's only been driving for a short time, and I know he ain't never seen a wreck like this before. That's called the voice of experience. When you know the only way through is through, and you might as well help somebody who hasn't been through it before understand, well, something's about to happen. We're either going to be fine or we won't, but you might as well be awake for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, that leaves us with 12 minis on hour 2, and we've accomplished 2 topics tonight. We might as well we could flow through this and be 2 topics on episode 222 on a Tuesday. Nora.
I had a question that actually goes, I think, really well in this conversation. There was a reel that came up, and it was by Jefferson Fisher or Jeffrey Fisher. I have his book back here, Jefferson Fisher. And he had said when somebody is going through a grieving process or dealing with something very difficult, and you say, let me know if I could do anything.
Yes.
He says that you're putting an obligation on them that they have to let you know. Now you're giving them something else to do. And he suggested just go do the thing that you think would be the most helpful.
Yes.
And whether it was to make a meal or mow their lawn or whatever it might be. So let's say somebody had, in this case, passed away, and you're saying, let me know if I can do anything or if you need anything, and go do that thing. And I thought it was really interesting because I know that there are people who would say, no, I don't need anything. And if I took the action to do something for them, they'd probably be really annoyed with me. Be like, I told you not to do anything. And it wouldn't be this nice thing. It would be an irritant for them. So I found it really interesting, and I was very curious as to everyone's thoughts, because we probably have all been there at some point in our life where we said, oh, let me know what I can do. Let me know how I can help you. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. And we're saying, let me know. So we're not giving them something to do. What do you do in that place? Or what do you hope people would do for you when you're in that position?
I saw Michael put his hand up.
So, really quick, now you threw a curveball at the end, Lenora.
Shocking.
A curveball. No, that was a curveball. Curveball. So, basically, first of all, to answer the first part of the question, and this is something that we all, because everyone on this call is a giver. We all want to help people. Everybody on this call is a helper.
Yep.
We are helping big helpersons, and we will help until we're blue in the face, which is a fact.
Oh my God, that's so good.
But it's true. And so what has to happen is we need to explain, say, hey, look, how does it feel when you have the ability to help somebody and you help them? So why would you rob me of that joy?
Sounds familiar.
And that's what I'm saying. This is what you preach all the time, which is very
Yes.
important. Now, the second part you brought up was, can you say it again? Because I'm turning into a parking lot, and that threw me on the curveball. I'm like, oh, crap. So say it again so I can attack it.
If you were in that position of somebody is saying to you, let me know if I could do anything, what do you hope that they would do for you? Do you hope that they would listen when you say, no, don't do anything? Or I'm good, I'll be fine? Or do you really want them to do something?
So
How do you
that's the
respond?
other thing. And that was where it was a curveball, because I knew it sent me in a tizzy. And so now that I'm stopped, I can focus more. But that is so powerful, because deep down, we all want people to embrace us like we want to be embraced. And so even though we may say we don't want their help, or we may say in reality we really do. So for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
It does. I'm so very curious. I like if certain people were to, for example, here's a great one. If somebody said, oh, I'll come by and I'll stop by.
Yeah.
No, please don't. Like that to me would not be a compliment. That would not be helpful. So, but that's also, I'm very territorial and I really don't like unexpected visitors. So
Fair.
But in that situation though, again, because I think we're all fairly private people as well. I mean, we have our spaces. We share this mask with the world. We share this mask with somebody else, and this mask with somebody else. And if somebody truly knew you, and they knew that, hey, you don't want to be encroached upon, maybe a phone call, maybe a text, maybe a little bit of flowers, maybe something like that. That's how you need your love experience. You know, that's how you express. And that's
good point.
how you do it. And so the way you express love is amazing, because like you'll send little texts, little pick me ups, little things like that, and that's how you want your love to be returned, is a little thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how, if somebody's paying attention, that's how they're going to help you in your time of grief.
Look at you, Michael.
Come on,
Good
girlfriend.
one.
That's what I do, baby. I'm a fireman. I put out fires.
And I'm that crazy one that absolutely loves it when people drop in unannounced.
Really?
That's my way of going,
No.
yeah, I know. You guys, yeah. But because of the way that I grew up, my father wouldn't allow me to have, if you know the rich dad, poor dad scenario setup, my pops wouldn't let me have friends over. And then I would go over to my rich dad's place, and the door was never locked. You could walk in 24/7, help yourself to any food if you were hungry. There were times I'd stay at my buddy's place, wake up in the morning, come upstairs, and there'd be somebody sleeping on the couch and somebody sleeping in the lazy boy. And so I decided I like that. But I know that there are people like you guys who, how dare you show up without a 3-day notice, an invite, a handwritten invite, and then a verification of what time you're going to show up and what we're going to discuss and when you're going to leave.
And food and drink in hand.
Yes. Yeah, and when people found out that I never locked my house, never locked my doors. It was so funny, the houses that I lived in yes, Guillermo, mi casa, su casa. The people that lived in the houses that I was renting in Cali, they were like, "Do we have a house key?" I went, "Why?" "Well, we gotta be able to get in." I said, "All you got to do to get in is open the door." We don't lock the key. And I had one renter, she locked me out of the house 3 times. "Well, get a key." I said, "Stop locking the house." "Well, what if somebody breaks in?" "Shoot them." But other than that, that's upbringing. Mark.
Yeah, to answer Laura's question, if somebody asked me, I'd be like, just be here for me. Just share the moment, share the love. No useless platitudes, no stories, no, no advice, no,
Yes.
just be here. And I know the folks on here would just honor that and be there for me in my grief, and just feel the connection, and I wouldn't want any words. I would just want that feeling of people who would be there for me. So
Yes.
that's how I would answer when they say, well, just be there. That's
Yeah.
all I'd need.
We don't have to bring up the topic of why you're here. In fact, tell me about something good that you had done during the week, or tell me something exciting you're working on, or, come here to disrupt my grief. Come here to interrupt my woeful thinking. Come here to bring colorful lights into my darkness.
Milk of human kindness. That's all I'd need.
And just like that, 2 hours have gone by. And yes, after I've had time to be in the dark, or don't tell me that I have to stop grieving. give me the options, allow me to see. Most of the time when clients come to me, they realize they've been grieving long enough or too long. And they're tired and they don't want to invest the energy to be tired anymore. They want to get back to living while they're still alive. And that's my wish for you guys, is that you all realize, yes, there are traps out there. There are locks out there, but there are also locksmiths and people that know how to fix traps and break traps and help get you out of traps so that you can live while you're alive. And if I can help any of you with that, I'm here. If you know somebody that needs help, get them in touch with any of us on this call. And if you want to know whether or not time manipulation is real, how do I say it, guys?
Do a plank.
Do a plank for a minute. You'll see how long a minute can be. Come on to Triple T and you'll see how fast 2 hours can go away. Just like that. And ironically, without planning, we covered 2 topics for Triple T number 222 on a Tuesday. Yay!
Yay!
Love
And
you
got a hurt
guys.
finger.
What was that?
What did you do to your finger?
Oh, I colored it from the inside the hard way. I smashed it while doing some work outside.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Well, this one finally stopped being colorful, so now I just got to get this one back to normal color.
Ask for your lessons gently.
Yes, exactly. But I also got to make sure I don't forget to say, love you, Mom. Love the rest of you guys. Thank you so much for showing up here all the time and supporting this and being part of it, adding to it, and giving up your precious commodity of time. I will always say, as soon as I figure out how to replicate it and give it back to you, you'll be the second one to know. But until then, live while you're alive. Go out and just enjoy as much as possible. Live full throttle. Make as many memories as possible. Live, love, laugh, and all those other things that we can throw in here. And hopefully I get to see your beautiful smiling faces back here in 7 glorious days. Until then, love ya. Bye.
Hey, and also check out the movie Goodbye or Good Luck, something, and don't die. Have fun. Good luck.
You really
have fun,
summed that
don't
one
die.
up there, Michael.
What's that?
You really summed that one up.
Good luck, have fun, don't die. Check
Sounds
it out.
like-
It's on Netflix. All right, bye everybody.
All right.
Good
See
night,
ya.
all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,